Today we're going to be taking a look at Lenovo's last and greatest 4x3 ThinkPad, the T60p. The T60 came out in 2006 and had a few different configurations, ranging from the 14-inch base model up to the top-of-the-line 15-inch T60p, which I have here. In 2006, this laptop retailed for around $2,800, which equates to roughly $3,500 in 2019. This machine originally came with an Intel T2500 Core Duo processor, 100GB 7200 RPM hard drive, 1GB of DDR2 RAM, and ATI X1400 graphics, but has since been upgraded where possible. Taking a look at this machine, there's no doubt it had one purpose in mind: business. The no-frills design along with its components meant this was going to survive plenty of time on the road. The keyboard is the classic ThinkPad style. Some would say the only true ThinkPad keyboard. In my opinion, it's one of the best keyboards ever put onto a laptop. In the middle, you can see the iconic red track point, which I used to think people were crazy when they said they loved it, but I gave it a chance and forced myself to use it and ended up loving it myself. On the bottom right of the keyboard, you'll find a fingerprint reader. I tested it out and found it does work, though it takes considerable pressure to get it to register, and you're probably better off just typing in your password. Taking a look at the ports, you'll see on the right side there's a DVD drive, 2 USB ports, and a slot for a laptop lock. On the left we have a VGA port, Ethernet/56K, audio, a sideways USB, and an expansion slot, though I think you'd be hard pressed to find something that this laptop lacks that warrants the use of this slot. The back is pretty bare. We only have the charge port and the fan exhaust. And along the front there's an IR receiver, Wi-Fi switch, the speaker grills, and the release for the lid. Alright, let's flip it over and take a closer look. And also pretend that I didn't just drop it. Being equipped with a SATA port, I had no issues putting in a 256GB SSD. This definitely helps it feel more like a modern laptop. The battery here is not OEM, but I do get around 2 hours off the charger. That's not really an issue for me though, as I don't use this outside of the house. One awesome feature of this laptop is how easy it is to take it apart for service or upgrades. It's refreshing to see a laptop that has function over form in mind. The screws to remove the wrist rest and keyboard are clearly labeled, and once you remove them, you can just flip it over to gain access to the internals. The wrist rest lifts right off and can be easily removed after disconnecting this cable. This now gives you access to the RAM slots. This laptop supports two 2GB sticks, but the system can only address 3 of those 4GB. Now you can remove the keyboard, and after disconnecting the cable, you now have full access to the internals of this laptop. With the keyboard out of the way, we get a good look at the internals of this laptop. You can see the heatsink here, shared by the CPU and the GPU. They go to a single fan. I did perform a mod to the heatsink that involves bonding the heat pipes with thermal epoxy. I'll leave a link in the description to the forum I used for this mod. Up here you can see the Bluetooth and Wi-Fi cards, both easily accessible if you need to service them, as well as an empty WAN slot over here. A really cool feature on this laptop is the ability to swap out the processor. Yeah, you heard me, a socketed upgradable processor. This one has already been swapped out with a 2 GHz Core Duo T7200. The DVD drive can be easily removed by flipping this switch and pulling it straight out. There's a number of reasons why you might want to remove the drive. This laptop has the ability to expand the functionality of this slot if you don't need the DVD. You can see inside here there's 3 different connectors. One for an extra battery, one for the DVD drive, and one for a SATA hard drive. Alright, let's go ahead and do a cold boot, see how long it takes to get started with this SSD. And there we go. I don't think that's too bad. I think my desktop back in the day took about 5 minutes before it was ready to go. Another interesting feature is the Think light. This is in place of a backlit keyboard, and I guess it could be useful in some situations, but honestly, I'd prefer the backlit keyboard. The first thing you notice about this laptop is the screen, which at 15 inches and 4x3 looks huge. But it's not just the size that stands out. This IPS panel has a massive resolution of 1600 by 1200, which puts it around 133 pixels per inch. The viewing angles are amazing on this panel no matter how far out you tilt the screen. Text is super sharp and overall it looks great. My only complaint on this screen would be the brightness. I really wish I had 1 or 2 more notches of brightness to go. Something else that surprised me was that not only does it pick up on Wi-Fi N signals, but it picks up on both 2.4 and 5 GHz bands. Those top 2 Wi-Fi points are both mine. This seems crazy to have in 2006. With all of these upgrades, this laptop really feels like a modern laptop in basic tasks. Web browsing is no different than any of my other computers, and sites like Steam and YouTube load quickly and work as expected. I wouldn't expect this can handle heavy workloads like photo or video editing though. So enough of this, let's get to the reason that I even own this laptop and why you're probably here, the games. I purchased this laptop to play older games with period correct hardware and a 4x3 screen. I decided on a selection of games from the era to show what this ATI graphics card can do, and you can expect most games older than the ones I'm showing to be perfectly playable as well. You will see I decided to use the track point rather than a mouse for testing, and it works surprisingly well. You can totally play these games through with this method. First up, one of my favorites, Half-Life 2. This was played at high settings and was super smooth, a very enjoyable experience. Next, I tried the original Far Cry. This had no problem running at max settings, which are automatically detected by the game. This was a very demanding game back in the day, but this laptop breezed through it with no issues. The Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion was a game that blew my mind back in the day. I thought we had reached the pinnacle of graphics and that games couldn't possibly look any better. Some things just don't age well, I guess. This was playable, but I had to turn the graphics pretty low and had to set the resolution to 800 by 600. Still better than what my desktop was doing back in the day. Doom 3 was one that I couldn't get to run very well. I actually read an old review on this laptop that specifically cited Doom 3 as a game that played with no problems, but even with everything turned down as low as it would go, I don't think I ever got over 30 FPS. Don't get me wrong, I would have played the hell out of this back in the day. My old PC struggled so bad with Doom 3. You knew this was coming. I had to throw Crysis at it just to see, and I was surprised to find that with everything on low, I was able to play it kinda okay, hovering around the upper 20s. And what PC review is complete without GTA 5? This game is basically a staple of the PC gaming scene now, and as you can see, it runs pretty well with only some minor hiccups. I would say you could definitely play it through with some tweaks to the... oh crap. You can see here the laptop keeps a reasonable temperature under load. While gaming, the GPU hovers around the upper 70s to low 80s, and the CPU in the mid to upper 60s. Not bad considering the shared heatsink. So there you have it, a 13-year-old laptop that can still hold its own in some ways, and makes a great period-correct gaming machine. The screen is still stunning to this day. Sure, it's not as bright as I would like, but the images are crisp and there's a certain charm to the 4:3 aspect ratio. These are a must-own for any ThinkPad collector and for anyone who loves to play with old hardware. You can normally pick one up for around $125 to $200 depending on the upgrades, but be careful of the much cheaper T60. That one goes for $50 or less, but doesn't have a GPU and has a terrible TN panel. If you enjoyed the look back at this machine, please leave me a like and a comment. I'd love to hear your feedback. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.